This guy was kidnapped from his former school and forced to take classes in a school where women have never seen a man before, let alone kiss one. So what happens when you are released in a place full of busty, lusty women? Nothing much. They just try to have you clap them in every way possible. Kimito was a regular guy who had never even held a girl's hand. One normal day at school, while half asleep in class, his friend tried waking him up for lunch. But before he could even stretch, a bunch of muscular dudes stormed in, picked him up like a sack of potatoes, and carried him off. Next thing he knew, he was dumped in front of some giant fancy academy that made Buckingham Palace look like a rundown hostel. A maid named Miyuki greeted him with a straight face and explained that this was Seiken Girls Academy, a school for the super rich daughters of elite families. These girls had been so sheltered they didn't even know what a smartphone was, let alone a boyfriend. He was taken to meet the principal, Maria. She told him the girls here were total social disasters in the real world, so the school came up with a brilliant plan. Bring in one normal guy for them to study like a science project. When he asked why he was chosen, Miyuki explained that they needed someone totally average. No special skills, no danger to the girls' purity. They'd even stalked him for 6 months and concluded that since he only hung out with guys, he must not be into girls. Kimito panicked and tried to prove he was straight, but they hit him with a terrifying choice: pretend to be gay or lose his instrument. He immediately chose the lie because, well, survival instincts. He was then introduced to his new class where all the girls looked like models. The class rep, Reiko, a polite blonde with massive confidence, greeted him sweetly. The girls were fascinated by his commoner behavior, especially when his phone rang. They treated it like an alien spaceship. Reiko even returned it to him later in a gift box with chocolates, almost fainting in the process. The poor guy had to catch her before she face-planted. Just when Kimito thought things couldn't get weirder, a short-haired girl named Aika dragged him to the garden and tried to kiss him. She'd heard a rumor that kissing a commoner grants a wish. Kimito, being a troll, told her she had to jump 3 times and bark like a dog first, and she actually did it. The girl was committed. Reiko walked in, Aika panicked, and ran off. Later, Miyuki showed Kimito his new room, which was a perfect copy of his old one, even the thigh posters. Since he was not straight now, he ripped them down in panic. Miyuki said she'd be his maid, but didn't plan to help him much since she found him weird. Then, Aika stormed in, mad her wish didn't work, but she quickly got distracted by his video games. She admitted she just wanted friends but didn't know how to connect with people. Kimito offered to teach her commoner culture in exchange for help surviving the school. Within minutes, she was addicted to gaming and smiling for the first time in forever. Excited, she suggested they start a commoner club to teach other girls about normal life. The next morning, Kimito is rudely woken up by his maid, Miyuki, who clearly hates her job and makes sure he knows it. She reminds him that part of her duties is to help him get dressed, which nearly gives Kimito a heart attack. The poor guy freezes like a malfunctioning robot. To save him from becoming a zoo exhibit for the girls, Miyuki tells him to use the back door to reach class. But even the back door isn't safe. Aika is already there, acting like she's part of a secret club. As they walk, Kimito asks Aika to explain how this crazy academy actually works in exchange for teaching her about normal life. Aika is surprised he's asking her instead of the beautiful and perfect Reiko. Kimito, being socially clueless, admits that Reiko is too cute and makes him nervous, while Aika doesn't. Naturally, Aika slaps him and storms off like a drama queen. At class, Reiko greets them gracefully while Aika stands awkwardly in the corner. Reiko then suggests hosting a welcome party for Kimito, which makes him nervous, but he agrees. Aika, meanwhile, is boiling with jealousy. During class, Reiko soaks up all the attention and praise from everyone, leaving Aika in the corner trying to impress anyone. After school, Kimito attends the fancy welcome party, which looks like something out of a royal banquet. He has no clue what's on the menu, so he just asks for Japanese food. The maids bring him a cup of instant ramen, which feels more like an insult than a gesture. The girls, who have never seen instant noodles before, stare at the cup like it's alien technology. Kimito explains that all you do is add hot water and the girls lose their minds. They taste it using silver spoons and fine china and instantly fall in love with the magical world of cheap processed noodles. Later that night comes the dance party. Reiko makes a toast to Kimito and the music starts. The students begin dancing like confused NPCs. Reiko notices Kimito looking lost and asks what's wrong. He admits he's never danced before. Normal guys don't exactly waltz for fun, but he gives it a try, and what follows is the most awkward dance ever. Somehow, the girls think his clumsy moves are authentic commoner style, and the room bursts into applause when he accidentally dips Reiko like a pro. After surviving the party from hell, Kimito meets Aika for their commoner club. She's mad he's late, but he explains what happened. He shows her some manga, but she doesn't even know what that is. When he explains, she gets hooked instantly, reading for hours and completely believing the over-the-top stories are real. Aika becomes convinced that commoners have superpowers and decides she wants to become a psychic and enslave Kimito. Kimito decides to mess with her and pretends she really has powers. He tells her to try stopping time, and when she does, he freezes like a statue. Aika celebrates like she just became a god, jumping around and even showing him her bits, until he breaks character. When she realizes he was trolling her, she uppercuts him right in the jaw. Meanwhile, Reiko is taking a bath, daydreaming about Kimito like she's in a romance novel. When she steps out, she bumps straight into him and let's just say he sees everything. Kimito freaks out and sprints away in panic, while Reiko blushes like a tomato, completely head over heels for him. The next day in class, Kimito sits beside Reiko, who's completely smitten and daydreaming about marrying him. Ever since that weird incident last night, she's decided her soul, body, and brain cells now belong to him. Morning rolls around at Psych and Girls Academy, and Kimito wakes up to his worst nightmare, his maid, Miyuki. She flat out tells him that his parents agreed to make him gay in exchange for a full home renovation and a luxury bathroom. Priorities, right? She even tries to text his parents, pretending he's confessing his love for muscular men. At breakfast, Kimito realizes that privacy at this academy is as real as a unicorn. Trying to find a quiet moment, he heads to the courtyard and spots a little girl scribbling math equations like she's possessed. This is Hakuwa, a tiny math genius who's clearly running on cosmic brain energy. But things take a weird turn when she starts stripping mid-equation. Kimito freaks out and covers her up right before some girls walk by. To avoid being called a criminal, he rushes her to his room. Turns out Hakuwa's a prodigy who gets so lost in math that she forgets small details like clothes. When she says she's hungry, Kimito offers her instant ramen. She hesitates because, commoner food, but after one bite, she demolishes the whole bowl like a seasoned pro. Then she just lies down on the floor and naps. When she wakes up, she goes back to scribbling math like nothing happened. Of course, Aika bursts in at the worst possible moment and finds Kimito holding Hakuwa's discarded underwear. Later, Kimito visits Hakuwa's lab, a giant research center dedicated to her math work. Her maid explains that Hakuwa's equations are so advanced, scientists around the world study them. Kimito's jaw hits the floor. Before leaving, Hakuwa grabs his sleeve and asks him to visit again, which melts everyone's heart. The next day, Kimito's back in class with Reiko, but they're soon joined by Karen, a tall, serious girl with a katana. That is until she sees a tiny insect and tries to kill it with her sword. Unfortunately, everyone thinks she's attacking Kimito. Chaos erupts as she slashes around, accidentally shredding everyone's uniforms. Kimito tries to dodge her but ends up in a ridiculous battle where he somehow wins, with his manhood dangling in Karen's face. When the dust settles, Karen's impressed and declares that she'll serve him until she becomes strong enough to beat him. Basically, she friend-zones herself into being his samurai. Later, Kimito's room becomes the Commoners Club HQ, where Aika excitedly announces her plan to throw a huge party. They realize they need a bunch of phones, but Hakuwa randomly appears again, this time chilling on Kimito's lap like it's her natural habitat and offers to build the phones in her lab. When Karen joins and proudly says she now belongs to Kimito, Aika gets jealous. She asks why he's nice to everyone except her. Kimito replies that he's just being honest because he respects her. Aika storms off, but returns moments later with Hakuwa's homemade phones. They take a group selfie together and Kimito becomes the luckiest dude in anime-verse. The next day, Reiko and her friends surround Kimito in class, trying to get his attention. Reiko invites him to a tea party in her room, her not-so-secret plan to charm him with her, upper-level assets. One of her friends almost blurts out their real intentions, but Reiko quickly shuts her up. Before Kimito can even respond, Aika swoops in like a jealous hawk, grabs his arm and claims they have an urgent club meeting. When the other girls ask what it's about, Aika freezes because explaining the Commoners Club sounds weird no matter how you spin it. Dragged away, Kimito apologizes to Reiko, who tries to act cool but is clearly disappointed. Back in her room, Reiko's friends gossip about Kimito and Aika being awfully close. Reiko insists they're just friends, but when the girls suggest Aika might have already kissed him, Reiko completely loses it. She screams dramatically and runs out crying. Meanwhile, Kimito and Aika are doing something far less romantic, planning a school-wide party and making a list of commoner snacks. Later, Kimito finds Reiko crying in her room, wearing suspiciously little clothing. He gently talks her into opening the door and they share tea while she admits she yelled at her friend. Back in his room, Aika reveals she's been spying on them, because of course she has. When Kimito says he wants to cheer Reiko up, Aika actually offers to use her own party supplies to help. Kimito is touched, calls her a good person, and gets rewarded with a flustered headbutt. The next day, the reconciliation party kicks off. Reiko shows up dressed like a regular girl. Jeans, casual top, even a smartphone in her hand. Shocking everyone. She teaches the class how to text and apologizes to her friend through a message, complete with an emotional selfie. Soon, everyone's obsessed with their new phones, and Kimito's just proud like a budget Steve Jobs. Reiko thanks Kimito, ready to confess her feelings, but he cluelessly mentions the whole idea was Aika's. Reiko short-circuits, storms off, and confronts Aika, leading to a full-on wrestling match on Kimito's bed. Kimito just stands there, spiritually conflicted but visually entertained. After Reiko leaves, Aika opens up about her past illness that changed her personality. Kimito comforts her, but their quiet moment gets interrupted by Karen and Hakuwa bursting in, wanting to join the club. Reiko soon follows, demanding membership too. The room devolves into chaos. Reiko and Ayaka fight. Hakuya starts writing equations on the wall, without clothes for some reason. Karen takes photos of Hakuya, and Miyuki walks in with scissors threatening to fix Kimito. In panic mode, Kimito yells that he loves muscular men, trying to save his assets from Miyuko's scissors. The story shifts to a radio station, where we meet Eri Hana, a famous singer, voice actress, and Kimito's childhood friend. She gets a text from Kimito complimenting her voice in his usual annoying way, proving he's still the same idiot she remembers. Back at Sekain Academy, Kimito wakes up next to Hakuya, the tiny genius who somehow ended up sleeping in his bed again, without clothes. He helps her get dressed, and the two head to the kitchen, where his fridge proudly contains nothing but potatoes. They decide to make potato cakes, and Kimito can't help but laugh watching a literal genius struggle to peel potatoes. Eventually, Hakuya gives up on cooking, takes off her clothes, and starts scribbling equations all over the wall like a math-possessed toddler. After things calm down, Hakuya admits she never had a real childhood. When Kimito asks what she did for fun, she casually says she used to design CPU circuits. To humble her a bit, Kimito gives her a riddle about frogs, which she completely fails to solve. The poor genius gets frustrated, and later when he walks her back to her lab, he notices a stuffed toy that looks suspiciously like him. Meanwhile, Reiko, Karen, and Aika hold a secret Hakuya problem meeting. They're all jealous because Kimito gives the little genius too much attention. They complain that Hakuya's strategy is unbeatable. If she's ignored, she just gets naked and starts writing formulas, which instantly gets Kimito's focus. Reiko even wonders if she should try it herself, but quickly aborts that plan. The girls agree they must defeat Hakuya and reclaim Kimito's attention. They wait for Hakuya in Kimito's room, pretending to want to be her friends. But Hakuya couldn't care less. She ignores their snacks and reads manga instead. Karen even tries feeding her by hand, but Hakuya's poker face doesn't budge. Desperate, they bring in Hakuya's favorite food, which finally works. Energized, she instantly goes into genius mode, strips again, and covers the walls in equations while the others scream in horror. When she finally falls asleep, the girls just stare at her and realize how exhausting Kimito's life actually is. Before leaving, Hakuya's maid comes to pick her up. Hakuya proudly tells everyone she made new friends, melting their cold, jealous hearts. Then she asks Kimito's frog riddle again. This time, Aika answers correctly, impressing Hakuya and earning some respect. The next day, Kimito is playing a dating sim featuring Eri's voice. He's mid-flirt with a 2D heroine when Aika walks in and catches him cheating. Kimito explains he's just supporting his childhood friend's voice acting career, and Aika decides to try the game herself. Within minutes, she's blushing and acting like she's in a 2D romance. Kimito quietly leaves to give her space. Then Reiko walks in and the two girls start exploring his room. They find manga filled with huge anime girls and conclude that Kimito is a hopeless pervert. Aika goes to the fridge and finds soda, a mysterious commoner potion. They share it, but the fizz shocks them so much they spit it out all over each other. Now soaked and sticky, they strip to dry their clothes. Of course, they immediately start arguing and somehow end up wrestling on Kimito's bed, half-dressed and tangled up like a scene straight out of a bad romance anime. That's exactly when Kimito walks in and savors the sight of two half-naked baddies play fighting in his bed. Later, Kimito gets called to the principal's office, where he's greeted by the headmistress and Miyuki. They tell him some exciting news. The school has finished building a new field trip site called Shomin Land, a full-blown theme park designed to look like an average town. Yeah, a theme park for normal life. Kimito's job? Be their tour guide. The catch? Miyuki reminds him that his precious equipment is on the line if he refuses. With that not-so-subtle death threat, he agrees immediately. The big day arrives, and the students can barely contain their excitement on the bus. Reiko and her friends chat non-stop about what commoner life might be like, while Aika is in a corner practicing how to order a burger combo like it's a speech for the UN. When they arrive, they're herded into a weird, windowless elevator that descends into the ground. A huge screen flickers on, showing their destination, a completely normal city. Kimito finds it boring as hell, but the girls react like they've just seen Atlantis. They lose their minds over streetlights, sidewalks, and traffic crossings. One of them even looks like she's about to pass out from excitement. Their first stop is a fast food restaurant, basically McDonald's with a disguise. Miyuki explains how it works. You walk up to the counter, order, and pick up your own food. The girls are horrified. You mean we serve ourselves? Miyuki adds that the food comes out in just 1 minute, and that's when the panic truly begins. When it's time to order, Aika, who practiced all week for this, freezes like a deer in headlights. Reiko steps up instead but immediately forgets how to read the menu. Kimito, the only sane person in the room, saves the day by helping everyone decide. Karen happily picks the meal that comes with a free toy. Once everyone's seated, Kimito takes a dramatic bite of his burger, acting like he's tasting heaven itself. The girls stare at him confused while Aika just sips her drink. Next, they visit an arcade. The girls lose it over claw machines, and Reiko somehow wins a plush toy on her first try, instantly becoming a hero. Kimito tries to check on Aika but gets mobbed by other girls begging for claw machine lessons. He accidentally brushes one girl's hand and she practically short-circuits. Then they find a dance game and Kimito gives a quick demo which makes every girl in the room go weak in the knees. But the real surprise comes when Aika steps up. She absolutely destroys the dance floor, graceful, confident, and totally in her element. Everyone stares in awe. For the first time, the girls aren't judging her. They're cheering for her. She finally gets the attention she's been craving. Afterward, Aika leads everyone to a cafe and smoothly orders one of those absurdly complicated coffee drinks with a name longer than a novel. The others are impressed beyond belief. When the drinks arrive, they all stare at the lids, confused about where to start. Aika shows them how to drink from the little hole and immediately burns her tongue. She tries to act cool, but her face betrays her pain. The girls laugh and suddenly the ice is gone. They find her relatable, cool, and human. By the end of the day, Aika is surrounded by new friends and a phone full of fresh contacts. The final stop of the field trip is a clothing store. Aika is now fully in her fashion guru era, explaining to her classmates that ripped jeans aren't broken, they're actually trendy. Meanwhile, Karen is off to the side awkwardly staring at a cute outfit. She clearly loves it but refuses to admit it because it doesn't match her tough samurai image. When Kimito encourages her to try it, she panics and claims she'd never wear such stupid clothes. Kimito doesn't buy it, so she immediately pulls out her sword like that's a normal reaction in a mall. He reminds her he's already beaten her once before, and that's enough to make her back down. Embarrassed, she finally agrees to try on the outfit and darts into the changing room like a scared cat. When she comes out, Kimito's brain just freezes. She looks amazing, and as the certified thigh enthusiast he is, he makes observations that her underwear is on the shorter end, making her, in his words, hella bootylicious. He blurts out that she looks perfect and should dress like that every day. Karen short-circuits, gives him a light smack, and sprints off red-faced. That night, back at the hotel, Aika and Reiko end up as roommates, which is basically a recipe for awkward silence. Aika scrolls through her phone while Reiko quietly sulks, but after a while, Aika opens up. She asks Reiko to check a message she's writing to send to everyone, explaining that people often think she's rude just because she's straightforward. Because of that, she started isolating herself to protect her peace. The two spend the rest of the night editing the message together like besties in progress. The next morning, Kimito gets his daily rude awakening from Miyuki. Later, everyone gathers for breakfast, and it turns out Aika's message worked. The girls happily invite her to sit with them, and for the first time, she feels truly accepted. By the elevators, Kimito congratulates her for becoming popular, and then proceeds to ruin everything by saying that since she's no longer a loner, she doesn't need the Commoners Club anymore. He tells her to hang out at fancy tea parties instead. Aika is heartbroken as the elevator doors close on her sad face. Kimito then decides to relax at the hot springs, but because his life is a rom-com curse, Aika shows up wearing only a towel. They argue over who gets to use the bath until her friends suddenly walk in. In pure panic, Kimito dives underwater to hide, and Aika ends up covering him with her assets. Trapped and running out of air, Kimito accidentally grabs her two milk trucks, earning himself an elbow to the face. When the girls finally leave, Aika notices he's gone completely limp and drags him out of the water. She gives him CPR right as her friends walk back in. From their angle, it looks like a full-on kiss scene straight out of a romance anime. The next day, the entire academy is buzzing with the news that Aika and Kimito are dating. Kimito, confused as always, tries to figure out what's going on but gets punched in the face by a jealous Karen before he can even say a word. Later, the Commoners Club gathers for an emergency meeting. Aika insists she didn't kiss Kimito, which makes Reiko breathe a sigh of relief. She tells Aika to clear the misunderstanding with a message, but when Kimito walks in, Aika hesitates, deciding to wait a bit. That tiny delay sparks another fight between the baddies. The next morning, Miyuki is strolling alone through the academy's garden when she bumps into a fancy aristocratic girl on her morning jog. The girl is shocked that someone from Miyuki's super high-status family is working as a maid. Miyuki just gives her a polite smile and walks away like a boss, not explaining a thing. Then she heads to Kimito's room to wake him up, and this time, she straight up kisses him on the lips. Kimito wakes up confused, terrified, and slightly traumatized, with Miyuki staring down at him like she's about to start a cult. Later, Kimito shows Aika a Commoner Marvel, a fortune-telling app. The animated girl in the app tells Aika she's blunt, emotional, and has zero filter. Aika's thrilled. She thinks the app can see the future and decides she'll wear her lucky color, green, forever. Kimito jokes that she needs to carry green leaves and do a lucky dance to make it work, and she actually does it, waving leaves around like Andrew Tate's long-lost sister. The other girls show up mid-dance, confused and mildly concerned. They try the app too. Reiko gets social butterfly, Karen gets tough on the outside, soft inside, and Hakuwa gets scientist with creative vision. Everyone laughs except Karen, who gets offended and demands a redo. The app then calls her a scatterbrained dummy with a big butt, which nearly starts World War III. Things heat up when they discover the app's compatibility test. Aika goes first and gets 80% with Kimito. She's thrilled, basically planning their wedding. Reiko one-ups her with 90% and immediately starts imagining a romantic night with him, while Aika fumes in the corner. Hakuwa gets a calm 50% and shrugs it off. Then Karin, pressured by the others, tries it and gets a soul-destroying 0%. She's so mad she pulls out her sword. Turns out Kimito entered her birth date wrong. The real score is 100%. Eika and Reiko start faking their info to beat her. The room turns into a WWE match, and Kimito quietly sneaks away with Hakuwa, who's hungry. The next morning, Miyuki wakes him again with her usual, "I might kill you but gently" energy. Kimito asks why she has to get so close to wake him, suggesting he could just use a phone alarm. Miyuki calmly offers to destroy his phone instead. Later, Kimito tries to relax watching UFC on his phone when Karin shows up, blushing and thinking about that 100% compatibility. She suddenly slashes his jacket in embarrassment and drags him to her room to fix it. Her room looks like a dojo, not a bedroom. She changes into a cute outfit they bought earlier, and Kimito can't help noticing her jugs. He compliments her, making her blush harder than her sword training ever could. She insists on fixing his shirt too, forcing him to take it off. As she stitches, Kimito says she'd make a great wife, and she nearly short-circuits. Just as things get awkwardly close, Eika, Reiko, and Hakuwa barge in. Karin panics and shoves half-naked Kimito into her wardrobe. Inside, Kimito enjoys a very close time with Karin, stuffing his face in her jugs, accidentally of course. Wardrobe breaks open, dumping them on the floor in a very questionable position in front of the huzz. Kimito, desperate, grabs his phone, which shows muscular men fighting, and blurts, "I was reading her fortune." Eika's had enough of his nonsense and locks his leg like an MMA fighter. Meanwhile, poor Hakuwa is still processing her tragic 50% compatibility score. She's sitting in her room, staring at her food like she's in a breakup montage. Her maid walks in and realizes things are bad. Hakuwa's drawn Kimito's face on her plate like a full-blown psycho and even made a handmade Kimito doll sitting on her bedside. The maid panics and immediately calls an emergency maid meeting. They decide it's their sacred duty to make Kimito fall in love with her. Back in the Commoners Club, Kimito is giving yet another lecture, this time about maid cafes. The girls are clueless, imagining something weird. Kimito explains that in the normal world, they're themed cafes where waitresses act like cute maids and call customers master. The girls find this both fascinating and a little disturbing. When Reiko asks if he likes maids, Kimito admits that for most guys in his world, having a maid is basically a fantasy. Reiko takes that personally and immediately decides they're recreating one. Soon after, Kimito walks into the Academy's cafeteria and finds the girls fully dressed in maid uniforms, acting like they just got hired by Disneyland. Reiko, as the head maid, dramatically calls him Master, which makes Eika jealous. Kimito tries explaining that the secret to maid cafes is serving food with love. The girls have no idea what that means, so Karin tells him to show them. Kimito demonstrates it with full energy, acting like a Japanese James Charles. The girls are horrified and leave him standing there like a rejected TikTok influencer. Meanwhile, Hakuwa's real maids overhear all this and come to the worst possible conclusion. They think Kimito has a maid fetish. So they decide to take advantage and set up a romantic field trip, with Hakuwa under the guise of showing him how real maids work. At the lab, Kimito watches as Hakuwa enters her genius mode, scribbling equations while the maids silently copy her notes with robot-like precision. He's actually impressed. Then, Hakuwa shyly takes Kimito's hand and offers to show him around. The maids immediately lose their minds, squealing like teenage fangirls spying on a first date. She brings him to a huge indoor sandbox she uses for relaxation. They start playing together while the maids lurk nearby, pretending it's their free time. Things get weirder at lunch when the maids claim they only have one plate, so Kimito and Hakuwa have to share it. The food even has romantic phrases written on it like a creepy love letter. Every time Kimito tries to eat, the maids gasp like they're watching a drama. Eventually, he ends up feeding Hakuwa and she feeds him back, both looking embarrassed while the maids cheer like sports fans. Just as they're sharing a drink from the same cup, the air suddenly freezes. Miyuki walks in. Her cold stare immediately shuts everyone up. She scolds the maids for slacking off like podcasters and orders them back to work. Kimito awkwardly apologizes for the chaos, saying he still doesn't really understand what maids do, but admits he learned more about Hakuwa today than ever before. That night, the maids celebrate their success, convinced their plan worked. They're certain Kimito and Hakuwa are now soulmates, blissfully unaware that Kimito just survived the most awkward lunch date of his life. Meanwhile, all the girls are secretly practicing how to be better maids in their rooms, because apparently everyone now wants a piece of that Kimito barbecue. The next morning, Kimito wakes up feeling mischievous and decides it's time for another masterpiece prank. He calls Eika to his room for a serious private talk, which instantly sets her imagination on fire. Kimito then pulls out a gift box and hands it to her. Eika's heart is ready to explode, but when she opens it, it's just a bright yellow suit that looks like it was stolen from a rejected Power Ranger. Kimito keeps a straight face and tells her this is a secret weapon that will make her the most popular girl in school. Kimito whips out his phone and shows her videos of a real Japanese comedian named Dandy Sakano, who does a weird pointing finger pose in the same yellow outfit. Eika completely buys it. Within minutes, she's wearing the yellow suit and striking poses like a discount superhero. Kimito snaps a few photos while trying not to laugh. But before he can reveal it's a prank, Aika runs off to show everyone her cool new move. Kimito panics and chases after her, only to crash face first into Miyuki in the hallway. His hands somehow end up on her thighs, leading to the most awkward moment of his life. Meanwhile, Aika is running around the academy doing finger guns in her yellow suit. Reiko spots her and immediately demands to know what the hell she's wearing. Aika proudly explains the legend of Dandy Sakano, but since Kimito gave her the outfit, jealousy kicks in and she decides to join. Now, there are two girls running around doing stupid finger gestures. By the time Kimito makes it to class, the entire room has been infected by the Dandy Sakano virus. Everyone's wearing yellow and pointing fingers like they're in some weird cult. Kimito realizes he might have accidentally started a religion. Later that day, things take a serious turn. Reiko overhears Kimito on the phone with an old friend, saying he's tired of the academy because it's full of girls and he misses hanging out with guys. Reiko misunderstands and thinks he's planning to leave for good. Panicked, she gathers Aika, Karen, and Hakua for an emergency meeting. After some very questionable brainstorming, Aika suggests the obvious solution. If Kimito misses guys, they'll just become guys. Since growing actual body parts isn't an option, they get creative. Karen remembers how Kimito often stares at her thighs, so they decide to copy his habits. Then they get a muscle suit from the maids, and Aika wins the right to wear it, instantly transforming into a jacked Liver King version of herself. They even spray grilled meat seasoning as cologne because nothing says masculinity like smelling like a barbecue. Fully dressed and reeking of steak, the girls march into Kimito's room like a low-budget boy band. Kimito just stands there, speechless, asking why they smell like a restaurant. They proudly explain their plan to convince him to stay by pretending to be his bros. Kimito stares for a second at the sight, Aika flexing, Reiko acting cool, Karen standing like a samurai, and Hakua doing nothing, and then smiles. He tells them not to worry. He's not leaving. He promises to stay with them. The next day, Kimito strolls through the quiet academy, trying to cool off after a sweaty tennis game. He heads back to his empty classroom to grab his pencil case and finds Reiko there, neatly refilling the chalk box like a model student. They chat about random stuff like how nice the sky looks, and Kimito suddenly realizes she's way too pretty up close. To save himself from embarrassment, he looks away. But Reiko closes the curtains because apparently it's romance o'clock. She tells him she wants to help with his flower arranging class, which is clearly just code for let's get closer. Then she asks him to start calling her by her first name, basically skipping straight to we're dating now. Later, during the Commoners Club meeting, Reiko secretly reminds Kimito not to forget their special plan. Aika immediately goes full Sherlock Holmes mode, suspecting something fishy while Karen joins in just to argue. The tension builds until two maids walk in and summon Reiko and Kimito to the headmistress's office. Turns out Reiko's family is there, her scary mom and her timid brother Masami. The mom greets Reiko politely but gives Kimito the death stare like he just ate her last cookie. Masami instantly hates him too, yelling about how no guy should be near his sister. Reiko defends Kimito, saying she's been happier at school lately, which somehow makes things even more awkward. Miyuki tries to save the situation by saying Kimito is gay and only likes muscular men. Then she drops the bomb. Reiko's marriage has already been arranged, and she's leaving the academy immediately. Everyone goes silent as Reiko gives Kimito one last sad look before he walks out like a rejected side character. Back in the club room, Kimito tells the others what happened. Everyone's shocked and depressed. Even Aika, Reiko's biggest rival, admits she's worried. They decide they can't just sit around. Hakua hacks the school's phone so Aika can call Reiko. On the phone, Reiko says she wants to obey her family, but Aika tells her to stop acting like a politician and admit how she really feels. Reiko finally breaks down and says she doesn't want to marry anyone, she just wants to stay with her friends. The next night, the squad gears up for Operation Save Reiko. Masami joins in to help, and Miyuki secretly gives them the green light to go. They sneak out like a bunch of kids breaking curfew and hop into a black car, driven by none other than Masami and the same buff dudes who once kidnapped Kimito. This time, though, they're all on the same side, heading off to crash a wedding and bring Reiko home. As the car hits the highway, Kimito asks Masami why he's trusting him with this mission. Masami says that as an aristocrat, he can't personally crash a family wedding, because apparently rich people follow weird rules even during rescues. Soon, they park on a hill overlooking Reiko's giant mansion, which has more guards than a prison. Masami realizes their plan got leaked, so he tells Kimito to take command while he distracts the guards. Karen, of course, doesn't wait for orders. She charges down the hill like an anime boss fight and starts swinging her sword. One slash later, the ground cracks, alarms go off, and she literally blows a hole through the mansion wall. Kimito, Aika, and Hakua run inside while Karen stays behind to deal with the guards, using her spinning sword tornado move that somehow leaves everyone half naked. Inside, they're blocked by the family butler. Masami fights him but immediately gets knocked out, proving again that rich boys can't throw hands. Meanwhile, the trio rushes deeper into the mansion, only to be attacked by drones. Aika picks up a vase, smashes it, and throws the pieces like a pro, taking down the drones one by one. Baddie with an aimbot. Dangerous combo. But before they can celebrate, security doors start slamming shut. Hakuwa sprints to hack the system while the two buff dudes from earlier show up and hold the door open using pure biceps. Hakuwa succeeds, the doors open, and just when they think it's over, a giant Power Rangers-style robot appears. Karen makes a dramatic comeback, now in full samurai gear, and slices the robot clean in half, though her clothes don't survive the attack. Finally, Kimito rockets down the hallway, literally thanks to hacked drones acting as rocket shoes, and bursts into the wedding room. Reiko's mom tells him to leave, but he gives a speech about friendship and love, plus how Reiko's talents are essential for the academy. Aika cries, Karen distracts everyone just by existing, and the group does their silly finger gesture to show unity. Reiko finally stands up and says she's done with the family and the marriage. Her mom warns she'll lose her status, but Kimito says she can live with him. Then, plot twist, her mom starts laughing and admits it was all a test to see if Reiko had the guts to stand up for herself. Everyone's relieved, until she basically tells Kimito to take care of Reiko forever, which sounds a lot like marry her. Back at the academy, chaos returns as Reiko, Aika, and Karin start fighting over Kimito again. Hakuwa gets inspired, strips down, and starts writing math on the wall like it's totally normal. The Commoners Club is back, messy, loud, and almost naked as ever. This is where the story ends for now. If you liked it, you might like the story of a Russian girl who falls in love with the laziest dude in class and tries to clap. Click here to watch it.